The Toyota Land Cruiser 100 series, or Amazon as we call it here in the UK, is known worldwide for its reliability. But does it actually deserve that reputation? Lots of people love this diesel engine, the 4.2 litre 1HD-FTE. They love this diesel engine for being bulletproof. But I'm going to put a dangerous opinion out here. I don't actually think it's very reliable, especially compared to the alternative petrol V8 engine, the 2UZ. If I'm honest, part of the reason I'm making this video is because I saw a video that says everything wrong with the 1HD-FTE, and it basically didn't talk about all the things that can go wrong with the 1HD-FTE. Good thumbnail, bad video. We'll see if we can be a bit more specific about the Land Cruiser here. The long-time viewers will know that I've had several Land Cruisers now and an endless sea of problems that need to be fixed with them. I'm ready to get some hate for this opinion, so let me explain myself a bit better. And if you think I'm wrong, I'm very happy to see that debate in the comment section down below, especially if you've had explosions from any engine in the Land Cruiser. And my Land Cruiser is 23 years old, it's got 210,000 miles, and it feels like almost everything on it's been replaced by this point, apart from the engine gearbox. Yet, anyway. My previous Land Cruiser had pretty massive engine failure at 150,000 miles, and it had full service history. And it still fell apart on the inside. So I will do a separate video covering all of the damage and what likely happened to that engine, but that's information for later. Let's start with some basic information about this engine. It is a 4.2 litre, straight six engine, 24 valves, and it's an interference engine. That means that the valves enter the same space occupied by the piston on the upstroke. So timing's very important. From the factory, it's 201 horsepower, 317 pound-foot of torque. That's the one with the intercooler. And the engine weight, wet, fully dressed with all the pumps and manifolds and all the rest, is about 380 kilograms. And the automatic gearbox in the transfer case, that's another 190. It's a timing belt, not a chain. Now, the European engines, in terms of emissions, they've got swirl flaps, they've got an EGR valve, they've got an inlet heater, and they have this viscous heater at the front here to help the engine warm up faster. Down the side here, the FTE has an electronic fuel pump, which gives cleaner emissions and efficiency. But what we actually have here is a mechanical fuel pump with all of its reliability ruined by all the electronic control. Now, if you're unfortunate enough that you need to replace one, a used engine will cost you probably about £4,000 here in the UK, or £19,000 from Toyota. Ask me how I know. Now, we frequently hear that these engines are bulletproof. But let me explain to you why I think that's complete bollocks. That said, this engine's never failed to get me home. These engines squeak and leak and rattle and smoke and stink, but they never stop. The design has a lot of strengths: forged crank, massive bearings, huge cast bridges in the block. There are still complete motor failures at high mileages, so that's like, you know, above 150,000 miles. But mostly it's the ancillaries and the emission systems that cause the meltdowns. The big repairs are very expensive, like the diesel injection pump. That's a £5,000 job. The vacuum pipe is 500 quid. One of those EGR pipes is 400 pounds to replace. Same for the swirl flaps, if you can even find them, because I think they're out of production now. A set of injectors would be 1,200 pounds. The fuel pipes alone from the injectors are 600 pounds from Toyota. Everything's still available, but everything is super expensive here, and many garages just won't touch it, because once the bills start to rack up, customers just go, tell you what, scrap the car, it's too much. Now, I've seen a video of the 1HD-FT engine, which was being destroyed for the American Cash for Clunkers program. That's where the US government spent $3 billion, but whoa, that wax is slippy. They spent $3 billion buying old cars to encourage people to buy new, more fuel-efficient ones. They drain all the fluids out and they pour liquid glass into the oil filler. It's a sodium silicate solution, and it's supposed to seize the engine so that they can then scrap the car and people buy new ones and they get a cash offset. I saw this video of a Land Cruiser that ran for 12 minutes with glass instead of oil. 12.5 minutes. They were still doing burnouts and bouncing it off the rev limiter, trying to get it to die, and it just wanted to live. The engine, even with glass in it, lasted longer than their camera's memory card did. They ran out of storage space waiting for it to die. I'll link the video down below.
Holy shit. 12.5 minutes.
So let's talk about what goes wrong For the 2UZ engine, the V8, it's the coolant pipes. You get coil pack failures, the rocker gasket leaks if you don't torque the bolts down properly, and everyone knows the exhaust headers leak and they get a ticking sound. And the starter motor issues. But is that it? I think that's it. For the 1HD-FTE, top of my list and bottom of the engine is big end bearing failure. It usually starts as knocking on cold start and it just gets worse and worse from there. I've got that right now. And it fills me with dread every time I hear it. Using the wrong oil viscosity, oil that's too thick, or neglecting your oil changes, that'll make this happen sooner. Next, you get head gasket failures between cylinder 3 and 4, and this is in part because we have a cast iron block and an aluminium head that expand differently. Turbo failure, it's really sensitive to oil condition. The journals wear, the oil seals fail, and then the turbo dies. The turbo, at least in this one, also has variable vanes. It's controlled by a vacuum sensor down the bottom there. These turbo vanes get stuck. They're supposed to pivot and swivel. If they can't do that because they're bogged down with sticky oil, which is coming from the EGR system, your turbo dies. Pre-facelift engines get piston failure, and I had this myself. They started disintegrating around the rings, and the rings themselves can also start to collapse. Then you also get injector failure due to clogging and carbon. Again, EGR filth. You get injector leaks, dripping diesel into the cylinders when the engine's turned off. Then these fuel injector lines. These apparently can crack, and so they're a very expensive service item. Some people even say that you should replace them every time you touch them, or remove them. The EGR at the back there gets really clogged. It's in a very hot part of the engine at the top there, and it's dealing with horrible sticky muck which gums it up. And the intake manifold too, these elbows and then the inlet pipes themselves get totally gummed up with EGR. Similarly, the swirl flaps, if you have swirl flaps in your manifold like we do here in the UK, those get jammed closed, again, with EGR muck, meaning only half of your intake ports are going to work. You also get valve cover oil leaks at the back here, cylinder 6, and then it drips down onto the bell housing of the automatic gearbox. You also get the crank pulley at the front here which disintegrates and wobbles as the rubber ages. It causes crank walk or crank float. I had that too on my first engine. Oil cooler leaks at the front here, power steering leaks in the middle, power steering pump itself can fail completely. Spill valve on the diesel injector pump, which you can't see here because it's covered in a case, but you can replace it without doing the whole pump, but it's really challenging work. Then you get earth wiring faults, very common with age. The injection pump can fail entirely. And again, it's $5 just for the part. And I just recently heard it's not in production anymore. You can't even buy a replacement. And even if it hasn't died completely, you get timing advance issues with the pump. And it starts to run really rough and you get down on power. Down underneath the engine, you get torque converter imbalances, especially on the earlier 4-speed gearboxes. And the valve stem seals as well. People refer to those all the time online. Anytime you have smoke, they say, oh, it's the valve stem seals. And I don't think these can be done in place. I think you have to pull the whole head off. And look, that's probably not all of it. That's just what I've heard people suffering and what I've experienced myself. One thought I have had though, in Australia, they love this engine. However, in Oz, they don't have all of our European emissions garbage. There's no swirl flaps, there's no EGR, there's no inlet heater required. So there's no carbon, sticky soot garbage stuffed into the injectors and the ports. So many of my issues can be traced back to the emissions systems. 23 years and 210,000 miles. Any engine this old is going to have some issues, and I like to check my biases. So I gathered up as much data as I could get my dirty hands on to compare the failure rates of the 1HD-FTE versus the 4.4 TD V8, the diesel used in the Range Rover, and the Cummins 6BT, found in some Dodge pickup trucks, and more commonly here in the UK, found in buses, double-decker buses. So let's have an objective look at how the reliability compares on these three engines. Right, let's have a look at the data. I've got the laptop here. I've used AI to do some data analysis because that's what I do for a living. And I've scoured the internet for service data, forum posts, part sales, workshop information, field reports, service bulletins, and piled all that information together so I can try and get a reasonable estimate of the reliability of these engines. And I've got some graphs to talk through so we can see what the major issues are for each engine. Straight away, we can see that there's one big outlier, and that's the oil leaks. And specifically, we're talking about non-critical oil leaks. So that's not pistons coming out the block oil leaks. It's just weeps and seals and cork gaskets and things that wear out, and then you start leaking oil. The 6BT is by far the worst. An estimated 800 oil leaks per 1,000 engines. So basically, all of them are going to leak oil. In fact, there's a saying that I found while I was doing this. If a Cummins isn't leaking oil, it's because it's run out. And the reason it's so bad is because it's got stuff like old cork gaskets. And really, it was an industrial agricultural engine. It's not really designed to be passenger vehicles. But now that people are putting them into passenger vehicles with conversions and so on, you're finding you got loads and loads of leaks. The FTE isn't exempt, 500 per 1,000 engines and 600 for the Range Rover V8. Now, the Range Rover V8 is a bit different because some of those oil leaks are critical, which we'll come on to later on. The next big thing is emissions. EGR, DPFs, those various sort of intake valving issues, that's the second biggest thing that we can see here. Around about 450 engines in 1,000 for the FTE and about 400 for the Range Rover. Almost nothing for the 6BT because it doesn't have emissions. It's a bus engine, for fuck's sake. So here's the top 5 issues, and it is upside down, so you have to forgive me. Oil leaks at the bottom there, major issue for all 3 engines. Emissions control systems for 2 of the engines. And then sensor and electronic faults. So again, the 6BT comes out really well here because it doesn't have a lot of electronics to go wrong. The Range Rover V8 is the worst. That's the orange graph there, 400 issues per 1,000 engines. That's an estimate based on all the data that I could get together. But there's a bunch of different generations of wiring went into the Range Rover Vogue, and the later editions had fixed a lot of those problems. Turbo failure, not so much of an issue, but 10% of engines are going to get a turbo failure at some point. I mean, look, my engine's got 210,000 miles anyway. It's on its 3rd turbo. It's probably going to need another one before long. I'm all right with that. That's more like oil quality and filtering and turbo manufacture. That's not really the problem of Toyota building the engine. That's just what turbos are like. Cooling system failures, hardly anything for the Land Cruiser. 50 here. Estimated 150 for the Range Rover, which is a bit more difficult. We're looking through the top 10 issues here, so let's look at the next 5. Catastrophic engine failures. The Range Rover does suffer from timing gear explosions that kill the whole bloody engine, and then you have to take it up and out. And actually, turbo failure can mean ingestion of metal components into the engine. So that's why we get catastrophic failures there. Not very many for the FTE, I might add. 20 estimated per 1,000 engines. Fuel injectors and fuel pumps run about 10% of the engines here, and all the cars seem to be much of a muchness. Big end and crank failure. More than I thought here for the Range Rover. And not as much as I expected for the FTE, 50 per 1,000 engines. Even though crank walk is a problem for the FTE engines, where that big rubber balancer goes out and it starts to walk the crank back and forward, and then you get thrust bearings and all sorts of issues. The 6BT and the TDV8 both have a catastrophic engine issue. The 6BT has a problem, they call it the killer dowel pin issue. There's a dowel locating pin which can fall into the timing gear of the engine, and it can cause catastrophic damage. 5% of engines, sort of 40 in 1,000, are expected to get that issue. Fortunately now, as people are taking 6BTs out of trucks and putting them into, 4x4s, you can fix that engine before it goes in. Head gaskets and cracked head. This is a bit weird and one of my biases. I had a head gasket failure on my previous FTE engine, and I thought it was a really common problem. According to the data, not as big a deal as I thought. In total, the Range Rover comes out worst here. 2,200 issues per 1,000 engines. So basically, if you've got a TDV8, you can expect at least 2 of these things to go wrong with your engine. FTE, 1,540 per 1,000 issues. So you're still going to get lots of issues with the FTE engine. And the 6BT, 1,300 issues per 1,000 engines. Now, most of those are the oil leaks. Cork gaskets, bad old seals, that sort of thing. So the 6BT actually comes out looking really reliable here because the bulk of the issues that are on display here are just oil leaks. Not catastrophic oil leaks. Just weeping seals and stuff. The TDV8's got several stressed systems in play which can cause the rear timing chains, turbo cooling can fail, crank failures, they can happen as well. And the 6BT has that killer dowel pin issue where it falls out of the case and into the gears. The FTE doesn't have a single catastrophic issue like that. It just has a multitude of service and maintenance type, weaknesses. Sensitivities is probably a better word for it. Surprised for me here to see that the FTE isn't as bad as I expected it to be in the data. Like 1/3 of the issues are just emission control systems, and about 1/3 of the issues are just the various oil leaks. And by goodness, I think I've got all of those oil leaks right now. So more reliable than I thought it was going to be, and the 6BT is a pleasant surprise since it's broadly really reliable, apart from it's a leaky son of a bitch. So where does this leave us? The data tells us that the FTE is a reliable engine. More reliable than other big diesels anyway. But the enemy here is the age and emissions. If you're fortunate enough to live in a country without engine-destroying government appendages, then you'll have a reliable engine. If you're stuck in the UK with me, then your mileage will vary. In the reliability data, I'm wrong. But I'm still going to keep travelling with a full set of tools and a tech stream on a laptop for when my next breakdown happens. This engine's going to fail eventually. I've disabled all the emission systems. It's already on its third turbo. It smokes on startup, and I suspect it's either the injectors or the piston rings again. It'll need a rebuild eventually, and I'm not going to give it one. Assuming I still have a job when that point comes, I'm just going to swap it for a BMW M57 engine, single turbo and a manual gearbox. It'll cost a lot less than an FTE rebuild, and I'll gain more fuel economy and power, but let us pray that it never comes to that. Fortunately for me, there are several people I've met through drifting competitions who could do the conversion. It's impossible for me, completely impossible, but a piece of cake for some of these guys. Well, let me know down in the comments below what your experiences are, and thank you for watching. Click the thumbs up and subscribe for more if you found the video interesting. And with that, I'd just say, stay safe, make good decisions if you can, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Sunday, in fact. Thanks for watching, everyone.